who come and ask what their interests are, and that really, I think, makes it more meaningful, and they remember it more too, rather than just giving what we call the old house tour. But sometimes that's not possible, or sometimes people don't know what they're interested in, so you have to kind of go along with it. But the most important thing, in my opinion, is the legacy of the house is its location, the Waldo Valley. And that, you know, Waldos were here for 7 generations, built 1715 to 1975. And you'll see there are no man-made structures.
7 generations.
7 generations.
What was that? 17? What? 15?
15 we give the date. Yeah. And that's something also to remember, that next year we'll have the 300th anniversary.
Yeah.
And I'm still not, don't know what to do, but I have some ideas, but you know. But in any case, you know, the walnut tree kind of ties into that too, and we'll talk about that when we go in there. But the valley is you know, permanently in perpetuity preserved, and so, and I always give the line, they saved it for their children's children, but really for all children and for everybody. So
How's it preserved?
right. Over the years, it started maybe 800 acres, Edwards, and then. Unlike most family farms, they're all broken up over the years. This one was, like, with 2 other Waldo houses, one in the corner, Zacchaeus Waldo House, and then the George Waldo House around the corner. And one's 80, one's 1850. The house itself was kept, and the immediate surroundings were kept, you know, in farm. And there were barns that were torched years ago, but the state of Connecticut owns the land,
okay.
Except the Historical Society, when Ruth Waldo, the last Waldo to live in the house, or own the house, gave, in her will and trust, the endowment, small endowment in the house, she gave with it 15 acres. That's what the Scots use when they come for their October event. The house maybe, I don't know how many acres on this side, most of it's in the spring.
Is the back hill part of it?
Yeah, well, half of it, the watch hill, yeah. But in any case, that tradition of preserving the land and the house or trees or whatever it is has gone on over the generations. Ruth wasn't the first one, there were ones before her, and then just recently my other cousin, the fields over there are all preserved too, all owned by the state, the DEP or the Department of Agriculture. So that's something, I don't know, to think about. Why would somebody preserve land? Why would somebody preserve a house? Sort of these questions you ask people, or you even take it closer and you ask, and what I would do is imagine yourself, and this is very hard for anybody to do, but if you have empathy, you're a widow, you're a spinster. Ruth was never married, successful businesswoman, and you've been given this house of your families that lived in it for 6 generations. What would you do? And you know what happens to most places is what they get sold, right? And then they get developed or whatever. So she decided not to do that, and she had that perplexing question. She was a very kind of a keen woman, a smart woman, and asked many people, and they suggested that she try to preserve it, and that's what she did. So, but she could have given it to members of my family or my first cousins who were more directly related to the house, but did not do that, and probably just as well. So now we have a sort of a local historical society that we try to keep up with it. The major burden we have, of course, is the endowment is very small, so it's a struggle every year. We always you know, you don't make a plea for people's pocketbooks, but maybe always be thinking down the road someday we find a Waldo or somebody who might be interested in preserving it. Anyways, in terms of the main, we start the tour obviously in the enormous central chimney. You know, it's an old house because of that. Why do we know it's old? because the bake oven's in the back, right? Bake oven being in the back makes it pretty difficult to cook. The stories of colonial women's dresses catching on fire were stereotyped but true. They eventually moved the bake oven to the right on the side. So it's had, you know, massive central chimney, everything built around the house for standard 2-room deep, 2 stories high colonial farmhouse. They were all over the place. This is what they built. They had crews that went around, right?
When did she, yeah, I mean, absolutely, this time, who knows, 1750, this is early, but,
Very early.
did they, at some point, obviously, put some sort of stove in there, like coal or anything?
Sure, sure.
That was later?
Well, not here, so maybe,
No?
I don't know about this room, but you'll see it in the other rooms.
Ah.
Because there are 1, 2, 4 other chimneys. And you'll see that there were whole places for the pipe. Yeah, the vent frame, yeah.
And this was restored and never just like boarded up or anything? It's always been open?
No, there
as far
was
as
boarded,
Oh, it was?
there was boarded, probably, I don't know when.
You remember it, but yeah.
No, there was a big, whatever it was,
Hmm.
I don't know what kind of wood it was, but yeah, no, it's the most inefficient way to,
Right.
I mean, all the heat goes off the chimney, right? Yeah, it was a constant
It's just one
struggle.
big open cooking fire.
Right,
It's
and
like
you-
When
massive.
did Ruth die? What was her life?
75,
75.
yeah.
You know when she was born offhand?
Uh,
Waldo trivia.
Yeah, no, roughly, yeah, 80s, 1880s. They all lived to be forever.
Wow.
Oh, yeah. They all had that gene, unlike my family. We lost that gene. And they all lived to be, no, they all, I mean, it's amazing, even the earlier ones, they lived to be in their 80s. I mean, most people died when they were in their 40s. These
Yeah.
guys, I don't know. I mean, there were exceptions. In terms of deaths, though, there were 35 Waldo children born in this house. That room that you're sitting in really is the only addition. And that was a little, the kitchen, the room ended, the house ended where that beam is. And that we considered to be the, whatever, the best room to be, because it was the warmest, right? Closest to this big oven, this fireplace. So people either died in that room or were born.
When was this
Maybe.
addition put on, you think? Wasn't it initially open?
1922,
It's
right?
1920, yeah.
I think that's what I've read.
Yeah. It was a nice little porch on the back.
It looks 20.
Ruth did all the modernizing to the house, and she did preserve it, you know, in many ways.
Yeah, we do have pictures of the porch.
Yeah. So, yeah, I mean, a lot of time can be spent on the house itself, and a lot of people who come to, Kevin knows this better than I do, who come to old homes are mostly interested in the house, the architecture, and then you would cater it all, center the tour around that, I think. The house hasn't changed except, well, it has changed actually in many ways. One reason the Huntington House was such a gem was because poverty is good for historic preservation, and the Kimballs never changed the house, right?
Yeah.
They kept it the way it was.
Yep.
Ruth changed things. She changed the windows. She added this on. She kept, you know, she didn't destroy the by renovating and changing things. You destroy the original structure, but it's still pretty authentic. And mostly what's interesting though in terms of the house are the objects, and you can spend a lot of time talking about the different pieces of furniture. And I think it's important to say that it's the 7 generations of one family, but everything in the house is a Waldo.
Yeah, that's very unique.
Everything's Waldo.
Yeah.
That's pretty unusual. There is a house in Madison, Deacon somebody or other's house. I can't remember. They do an extraordinary job on that, and that was owned by one family for 8 generations. Anyway. I always recommend people if they want that kind of tour to go down that house. He was a deacon. So this is called the Edward Waldo House because Edward built it, but you know, I just call it the Waldo House. Get away from the patriarchy, although patriarchy certainly was, it existed forever. So that's most of the furniture is original, except that's not that table. Some of it's very old. And the stove actually is a coal wood burning, what is that, 20s probably?
Probably, not earlier.
Yeah.
They were using it for a while. No, that's probably 18 something, I think.
The piece de resistance, the most important room is the front parlor. Before we don't want to, Jeff, I'm not going to force you to listen to me.